Hello and welcome to another Property Solvers podcast. This is episode 14. This is Ruban Selvanayagam and I'm here with James Durr from Property Solvers also. How you doing, James?
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm great, Ruben. You?
All good, all good. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to handle unrealistic property sellers. So I'm sure listeners would know that Property Solvers, we primarily deal with direct to vendor inquiries. So that's people that get in touch with us, not through an intermediary or through an agent or an auction house. People are getting in touch with us to discuss the sale of their property. Here at Property Solvers, we offer a few different options. The first is the quick cash sale, which is kind of our bread and butter and what we do on a daily basis here. But we also have an auction option and an estate agency option. So we kind of tailor our approach depending on what the seller situation is and particularly whether price is more important than speed. So yeah, we've always taken this kind of direct to vendor approach since both myself and James have been involved in the industry. And I think it gives us an insight into what people are going through, more so than other investors that are kind of dealing with sellers, through estate agents or auctions, because you're not getting to speak to the seller directly. So having that direct conversation with a seller really kind of helps us close more transactions because we can really get to the bottom of what's going on. Problem we have is that often sellers reach out to us and they often have a different idea of what their property is worth or what they think their property can sell for, which we often have to overcome. So I thought we would spend this podcast kind of going through the different methodologies that we approach to kind of do that. So first one I wanted to talk about was really what we do when a seller comes up to us and says, okay, well, my house, I think my house is worth X amount, but we kind of see that it's worth quite a bit less, and how we kind of handle that. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss, and I think James can kind of build on the back of it, is really just educating the seller. So the first thing that I always do when I'm handling calls is just to kind of say to the seller, okay, where did you get that valuation from? Typically, they're going to come back and say, oh, my local estate agent came back to me with that price. And by and large, a lot of estate agents are coming back with prices that are overvalued. And it's common knowledge that they're out there overvaluing properties to win business. So, I think we've spoken about it on the podcast before. They would often say the property is worth, 100 grand property is worth 120, just so they can, spark the seller's interest to sign up with them. And then as the property goes on the market, it's obviously not selling, particularly at the moment, because it still is a buyer's market. And then they can gradually chip down the price and then eventually get the sale over the line. So it's a common tactic that's used. So we often have to spend the time to convince sellers of that. And one of the ways that we do that is just by going through the comparable properties. So, in recent years, there's not as many comparable sales because the market has slowed down quite a bit. But we can kind of go through what properties have sold through on their street. We would also look at the size of the property. So say, for example, you've got number 24 Acacia Avenue has sold for this price, and theirs is number 18. We can see the size of the property and what kind of condition it is and see how that compares with theirs. And then it's a question of kind of talking them through what's happening in the market at the moment and how we can kind of, show them that things are moving quite slowly. So we can go to use tools like Rightmove Plus and say, look, okay, well, that property took a while to sell. If you want to get a quick sale of this property, we would probably suggest pricing at this level in order to get the level of interest that seller needs. But the main thing, what I'm trying to say here is that it's a question of education and really just showing them the data, showing them the real figures of what's actually happening in their local market in order for them to kind of try and get them on the same page as you, really. James, what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
Yeah, Ruben, definitely education is a major part of being able to discuss whether or not a property is overvalued with a vendor. Um, Unrealistic vendors is like the worst thing that we deal with in our business because it's absolutely a daily thing. And I think there's kind of things that you can look at up front to sort of tell if a vendor is going to be unrealistic. And one of the main things I would say before we even speak to the vendor is like we might go on to Rightmove. Obviously, we've got Rightmove Plus. Some people out there obviously don't have that because it's really for agents. But there are Chrome add-ons like the professionals use. One of them called Property Log,
Mm.
where it's a Chrome extension. You can add it to your browser, and that will tell you how long a property has been on the market. And that is really the first telltale sign to see if the vendor that you're dealing with is unrealistic. And the great thing about Property Log is it will tell you how long that property was on the market for, when it was first listed, and also any price reductions that vendor has done through their estate agent. And oftentimes, yeah, like you said, Ruben, it will be an estate agent, the estate agent that gave them the initial valuation, in some cases, which like some estate agents, particularly an online estate agent that we know, which their second name is Bricks. They were famous for overvaluing properties, and anytime we'd see properties on with that estate agent, we'd automatically think, okay, maybe that one is overvalued. But yeah, I mean, these kind of tools like Property Log, they'll give you an idea, like I said, when the property is first listed, what steps the vendor has taken um, to sell the property. And obviously, you can see if property's been on there for a long period of time. Like we had one earlier today, it was on for 2 years, and they've had one price reduction in that time. So, okay, sometimes it is the estate agent overvaluing, and there's a period of price reduction to get it to a price that will move. But sometimes it's just the vendors, like they do not want to drop the price. They've got it in their head that their property's worth X amount, and like they will hold out and hold out till they get that price, which more often than not they won't.
Yeah.
But for us, like as a first stage, like we want to identify: are we dealing with a vendor who is unrealistic, who is unmotivated? Because if we are, it's a waste of time for us, because obviously the property will be overvalued. It's highly unlikely they're going to take a discount or an offer from us on that property. So we tend to, yeah, once we've identified that they're unrealistic, we spend as little time as possible with those vendors, because what you really want to be dealing with is realistic vendors who understand that they have to price their property at the market value in order to sell it. And they're the sort of vendors that typically we like to do business with. Like I said, just going back to, I mean, you will have some vendors who are slightly unrealistic. And then, as Ruben pointed out, that's a case of then educating those vendors. And what we like to do is get together. Usually what we do is we'll find 10 comparables in the same street or in surrounding streets of properties with the same characteristics. So similar condition, similar size to their own, and preferably on their own road. And then what I usually do is I'll discuss the 3 best comparables with that vendor to give them an idea what the open market value is. And once you can get them to agree or accept that maybe the open market value is less than what their estate agent said, and you can provide real evidence based on what properties are actually selling for in the area, so you're looking at sold prices, then it does help to kind of talk those vendors down and make them understand that they need to be a little bit more realistic on their price. Another tool that we actually have on our website is, like, we actually have a tool on the website where you can go in and you put the postcode in, and it gives you an idea of like how long a property takes to sell in that postcode, and also what percentage of asking price that those properties are selling for. So it's really good to sort of give you an idea if
Yeah,
you're dealing with.
I'll add it into the show notes, that tool. Yeah. And the other tool we've got is the speed of sale tool as well. So
Yeah,
um,
that's what I was talking about, Ruben, I
oh,
think.
right. Yeah. You've got the speed of sale. And we've also got the difference between the asking price and the sold price. So yeah, the tools that we've got, I'll add those to the show notes. Yeah, it's an interesting one because we've actually listed a property up in Scotland that's been on the market for 2 years, and the seller, I think the seller is just not even bothered about it, and we're just taking it off the market, because it's just we've been trying to convince the seller to take it on. To be honest, I don't know why we took it on in the first place, but there are sellers out there. They're not even that bothered about selling. They just want to put it on the market, and if they get the offer they want, happy days. If not, they're willing to just leave it on. And we don't really work like that as auctioneers and estate agents. We just kind of feel that if you want to use our service, then we actually want to get you a sale. So we only want to work with people that are serious about actually closing the sale. We don't really want to just take on people that are not bothered about a sale. I mean, myself and James have been dealing with inquiries this week. That's why I thought this topic would be quite interesting. I spoke to a chap yesterday, and he said, well, if I don't get the price I want at auction, then I'll just take it off the market. And I was kind of like, well, there's not really much point us moving things further, because I don't think it's going to get the price that you want at auction. But he said, oh, I found another auction house that's going to do it. So I think the other auction house's model is to basically just take on as many properties as possible and then just risk the fallouts. Whereas we don't really work like that. We kind of say to them that, if you want a genuine sale, we'll get you the best possible price, because we can market the property in the best possible way, and all the portals, we've got databases, and we do a really good job. We've spent a lot of time in our marketing channels and working on them, perfecting them. So we can definitely get you buyers, but it's a two-way street really, on the seller being realistic at the same time and genuinely want to be able to kind of work with us and work with buyers, especially at the moment, because the market is so tricky. Another factor is that, looking at sold prices is probably the best one. But if there aren't that many comparables, we often refer to sold subject to contract properties and those that are under offer as well. But they're not necessarily a good indicator of what the actual sale price is, especially at the moment. Buyers are in a better position to negotiate down on prices. So we do have to explain all of that. And so we're finding at the moment in this buyer's market, there's a lot more discussion around sale prices in order for people to get the realistic price. And you'll be surprised at the amount of people who are quite experienced, in the industry, like landlords and things like that. They still really haven't got a grip on valuing properties, and we're still dealing with landlords that are getting kind of, if we were to sell their property at the prices they want, they've got a tenant in them, and the rental yield is about like 4 or 5%, and they're still convinced that they can get that price. So it's across the board. It's not just people that are selling, the asset they've only owned for, it's the first asset they've ever bought or anything like that. We're dealing with the same thing with like experienced landlords as well. So education is key, but also what I also think is important, especially for us as direct to vendor kind of dealing with direct to vendor clients. I think we always try and be empathetic to their particular situation as well. So we always try and find out what's actually going on behind the scenes. Why are they selling? What is their situation? Is it financial? Maybe there's a particular situation that they want to sell quickly, and that will often help us kind of really build a solution around it. And it may not necessarily be a cash purchase. It may end up being an auction sale where we can, optimize the price a little bit more by getting a competitive bidding environment going. So we always try and understand what the true motivation is as well when we're doing things. So that's another factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a process, and when you're dealing with vendors, I mean, you can actually sort of ask them like some pertinent questions if you're dealing with them on the call, or if you're dealing with them face to face, such as, you know, how long has the property been on the market? Have you had any offers? You know, is there a reason what, like, have you tried reducing the price? You know, is there a reason why that offer wasn't proceedable? These kind of questions all help you build up a picture of whether or not the vendor that you're dealing with is truly motivated, or if they're even realistic. And I would say if you're a professional property investor, if you find out that they're not motivated and not realistic, there is no point in wasting your time. And with regards to properties that have been on the market, there's usually only two reasons why properties stick on the market. So one is the price, and that is the main one. So basically, like, if you're just getting no viewings, 9 times out of 10, it's because it's priced too high. And and the other thing is the condition of the property. So if you are getting viewings, so the price looks good, you're getting people in the door, but then they're coming to the property and you're not getting offers, then it's because of the condition of the property. And there's either two things you can do in that situation. One is do some work on the property, or the other is drop the price so it's cheap and people are prepared to buy it just because they'll spend the money to do the work. So yeah, that's the two main things in terms of like properties that are on the market and how you can sort of know what sort of vendor you're dealing with.
Yeah, true. And also just kind of letting them know where the market's at the moment. You know, we are in a slow market, so we're seeing it day in, day out here at Property Solvers that, you know, the properties that aren't selling, yeah, as you say, James, they're overpriced. They might need a bit of work, you know, and usually the feedback we would always relay over to our seller clients as well, and they kind of just say, you know, this is what's going on. And you know, there are buyers out there that go and visit properties almost as kind of as a hobby. You know, they're going out there and they've got no real intention of buying, and we try and weed them out as much as possible. You know, we always try and find out what their position is before we conduct a viewing, and just make sure that they're genuinely serious. They're not just out there to try and go out to properties and lowball offers and stuff like that. You know, we always try and filter them out to a certain degree. But yeah, the market is genuinely slow, and I think if we can kind of convey that to sellers in the best possible, you can do that. You know, then they're more likely to be on the same page as you. And I think a lot of it comes down to trust. I mean, here at Property Solvers, myself and James have been involved in the industry for 20 years. So we've been through a few cycles, you know, we've been through all the different kind of phases of the market. So we can talk about our own experience as well. You know, selling property, buying property. So that helps if you've been in the industry for a while. It definitely helps. It's not obviously fundamental because there's plenty of people that have only been in the industry for a year and they're doing really well. But it definitely does help a bit of experience, you know, helps you show that you're a bit more credible as well.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I'd say, Ruben, on the topic is obviously there's different reasons for sale as well, that can sort of lead to different levels of motivation. So somebody, for example, who's looking to upsize, let's say, as a reason for sale, they're definitely going to be, in general, like way less motivated than somebody, for example, who might be going through divorce, right? Just to take two sort of extreme examples.
Yeah.
And because obviously, like, if you've got a divorce case and you've got like an acrimonious split and you've got the husband and wife and they want to sort of go their separate ways, they're probably going to be a lot more motivated than somebody who is, for example, looking to get a bigger property, a more expensive property, where they need to get the absolute maximum that they can from the sale of their current property, their current house that they're moving out of. So obviously, like, there's a number of reasons for sale, and if you know the reason that seller is selling, it can help you also to determine like the level of motivation. And obviously you can ask the vendor direct if you're dealing with the vendor, or you can ask the estate agent if it's a thing where you're going and viewing properties through an estate agent. You know, you just say to the agent who's showing you around, any idea why the owner is selling, and do they have a time frame for when they're looking to complete by? You know?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. Another thing is also how much the seller has spent on the property. You know, if the seller's invested a lot on, you know, doing the kitchen, doing the bathroom, just refurbishing the property in general, then they're going to want to maximize the price, especially in recent years with all these costs going up. You know, they're going to be wanting to at least get their money.
Sometimes though, Ruben, yeah, I mean, sometimes those sort of properties as well, though, they can overstretch themselves at times, you know?
Yeah.
Like we've had those ones as well where you've had like multi-million-pound properties come through, spectacular looking houses, but they've just overstretched themselves, taken on too much debt. So yeah, it can be a factor. To, like obviously, I would say in general, it's less likely that if a house is like in top condition that the vendor is going to be motivated, but it doesn't mean that they won't be either. So there are definitely some gems there as well that you can find that are you know, houses that are immaculate that you can still get at a good price.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing as well, I mean, it hasn't really been the case in recent years because there have been some equity gains, particularly in the Midlands and, you know, in the North. But, you know, there are situations where we're dealing with clients and they haven't really got enough equity in the property to even get a fairly healthy open market sale. So that's something that definitely needs to be checked. You know, the level of secured debt. I always make sure that you're checking not only the mortgage, but if there are any other second charges against the property, you know, sometimes third charges and credit card debt that's been converted into a secured loan. So it's worth checking that as well, you know, to make sure that, you know, when you're pricing the property, there's going to be enough, you know, meat on the bone for even the fees to be paid and for them to pay the solicitors. We have been through that situation quite a few times, you know, not just in the cash sale situation. But just one last thing as well, going back to the education point, it's worth mentioning that overpricing property can be a little bit dangerous. I mean, we've all done it because if you overprice a property and it ends up sitting on the market, it tends to taint the property to a certain degree, because if people see the property sitting on the market for a long time, it's a natural reaction to think that there's perhaps something wrong with it. You know, why haven't there been bids on the property if it's so great, you know? And then a price reduction, people might think, okay, well, this seller's a bit desperate. These may be completely unjustifiable, but it's just what buyers out there are thinking, you know? It varies in a hot market, but in the moment, you know, if a property's been on the market for a couple of months, doesn't tend to give a good impression to the buyer's market. Would you agree, James?
Yeah, definitely. I think the entry price at which you hit the market first, if you're selling a property too, because this goes for investors who are refurbing and selling properties as well. If you get that wrong, it really can screw up the whole sale because, you know, you get into this pattern of like discounting the property every month or so, and you end up getting less money than you would have done if you had went straight in with the realistic price at the start, because obviously people are thinking like, you know, why is this property been on the market so long and why is nobody buying it, and they keep reducing it. There must be something wrong with it. So it definitely is a risk, you know, for us and anyone selling out there.
For sure. Okay, great stuff. So yeah, another interesting conversation. I hope people are getting some use of what we're talking about every week. We're 14 episodes in now, so yeah, we'll keep going with this, and hope people are finding this interesting. And yeah, please do message us if there's any topics that you want to hear about. And yeah, thanks for tuning in again. And yeah, please like and subscribe. And yeah, we look forward to speaking again next week. Have a good week.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye.